Hi, everyone. This is Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. I am Jeremy D'Entremont, historian for the Society. Welcome. And today is February 26th, 2026. I think it's a lucky number, 22626. This is the first ever live streaming edition episode of this podcast, Lighthearted. Today is, I said that already. After almost 400 episodes since 2019, we thought it would be fun to try something new. Even at my age, I think it's fun to try new things. So the plan is to do one of these live streams every month on the last Thursday of every month. This video of this event will be posted on YouTube after the fact. Might take a few hours to show up on our YouTube page. And I will be posting the audio version of this podcast on as the regular Sunday edition of the podcast on Sunday, just the audio only version. We will be doing a contest near the end of this live stream, and here is a clue. Pay attention to my baseball cap, and I'll show you the one I'm wearing right now in case you can't see it. You should be able to see what it says on the hat. So make note of that. Make a mental note of that or write it down because it could come in handy later. So pay attention. I may just change my hats once or twice during this. We have two co-hosts today. First, Sarah McHugh has co-hosted the podcast a number of times, and she is the host of the Society's new podcast, Be the Light. And there's Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Good to have you.
To be here. Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks, Jeremy.
You're so welcome. And congratulations again on the new podcast. I hope people are listening to it because it's great.
I hope so too.
Yeah, Be the Light. So continued success with that. Our other co-host this evening is Jeff Gales, the executive director of the U.S. Lighthouse Society. Jeff is here somewhere. There he is. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi. Good to have you. Glad you could be part of this. And also joining us, I would say, kind of as a guest panelist here is Ralph Krugler. Ralph is an author and lighthouse historian in Florida, and he's doing a lot of great work for the Society on the online research catalog and other things. Hi, Ralph.
How you doing?
Good. Good to have you. Great to see you.
Good to be here.
Also joining us is Rich Gales, who does too many things to mention, wears a lot of hats for the Society, including, there he is, hey Rich, including work on this website, on the Society's journal, the Keeper's Log, among many other things. Rich is helping behind the scenes this evening, but may join us with a comment or question along the way. So thank you, Rich. Thanks for all you do. You know, I was thinking just before we get on, I was thinking that we actually have four corners of the United States represented in this event tonight. We have Jeff at the U.S. Lighthouse Society headquarters in Washington State. Sarah and I are both in the general Boston area. I'm a little bit north of Boston in New Hampshire. Excuse me. Ralph is at the southeastern corner of the country in Florida, and Rich is in the southwestern part of the country near Los Angeles, California. So I think that's kind of cool. And we have two guests coming to us from the mid-Atlantic region. Let me go ahead and introduce them, okay? Our two guests are from Virginia. Colby Thomas and Billy Simmons are our guests, and they are both historic interpreters for Old Cape Henry Lighthouse in Virginia. Hi, Colby and Billy. Thanks for doing this tonight.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to be here.
Nice to see you. Well, let me just do a little bit more of an introduction here. Colby grew up in Washington State and moved to Virginia in 2023. She's been at the Lighthouse as a historic interpreter since then. She started managing all the social media content for the Lighthouse last summer. Colby has a bachelor's degree in anthropology and history and is working on a master's in museum studies. Did I get that pretty much right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, great. Billy worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, Norfolk District, for over 37 years. And for most of that time, he was captain of a hydrographic survey vessel surveying the waterways of the state of Virginia. And Billy has been working at the Lighthouse since 2016. Do I pass the test on that one, Billy?
You got it.
Excellent. So at this point, I'm going to ask Sarah to help us out a little bit. and give us a little bit of background about the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse. So, Sarah, if you could rejoin us here. Here we go. Hi, whoops. Hi, Sarah.
Here I
There you
am.
are.
I'm
There you
back.
are.
I
Okay.
am back. All right, I'll get us started. There are two lighthouses at Cape Henry in Virginia at the south side of the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. The older of the two lighthouses was built in 1792, and it was the first federally funded public works project of the newly formed United States government. The sandstone tower stands 92 feet tall. The 1792 lighthouse eventually developed some cracks, and a new, taller lighthouse in 81. The original one remains standing. The new Cape Henry Lighthouse, built of cast iron, stands about 350 feet from the old structure. Since 1930, the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse has been owned and operated by Preservation Virginia. It was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1964, and in 2002, the American Society of Civil Engineers designated it a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark.
Thank you, Sarah. Beautifully read. Thank you. And I just want to mention that I visited Cape Henry Lighthouse with my wife in 2023. We really enjoyed it. I'm just going to put up a picture or two from that visit. Here's one. And here's another showing the old and new Cape Henry lighthouses. So again, that was a great visit that I enjoyed very much. And also mention before we get back to our guests that I lived with my family in Hampton, Virginia, which is very close to Cape Henry. I won't say what year, but when I was 5 years old, we lived there for a year. So I can't say I remember a lot from that time, but a lot of my earliest memories are actually associated with that area. So I thought that was an interesting tie-in. So at this point, I want to start getting into some questions, and I'm inviting our co-hosts, Sarah and Jeff, and also Ralph and Rich to ask questions. And everybody else, if you're watching this on YouTube, please use the chat. And at any point, you can obviously comment, ask questions. We'll get to questions as we can. We might probably save a lot of the questions for near the end. We are planning to go around an hour tonight. So again, we'll save a lot of the questions for the last part of it. But anytime, you're welcome to use the chat to comment or post questions. So if we could get our two guests back in the studio here at this point. I have some questions prepared. There's Colby. And I know Billy is here somewhere. There he is. All right. So this first question is for either one of you, okay? Just to kind of set the stage before we talk about the lighthouse, besides managing the old lighthouse, what else does Preservation Virginia do?
Sure. So Preservation Virginia was founded in 1899. So they've actually been around or 1889. They've been around for a long time. Basically what they do is they preserve historic sites all over the Commonwealth. And they also have some other programs that kind of contribute to historic preservation work. They've got some fellowship programs that are designed to help up and coming historic preservationists. But in addition to the Cape Henry Lighthouse, they manage 5 other sites. And so if you work north from the Cape Henry Lighthouse, you'll run into historic Jamestown, which is over in Jamestown. There's 2 historic properties in Surrey called Bacon's Castle and Smith's Fort. And then in Richmond, they manage the John Marshall House, which is the house of the justice. And then north of Richmond is Scotchtown, which is notably one of Patrick Henry's residences. So it is called Patrick Henry's Scotchtown. So we are lucky to work for this organization, but we get to stay at one site. So we get to be experts in one site that we have. I think both of us have visited almost all of the other sites.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's quite an impressive list. And you could let that person know to maybe not slam the door quite so much. All right, great. So this question is for both of you, Colby and Billy. What do you guys do as historic interpreters at the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse? Who wants to go first?
Colby can go first, I guess. We both do the same thing.
Sure. I think the greatest joy that we have is getting to show the lighthouse to our visitors. And so most of the time that's kind of, I would say, low-key self-guided tours where we're just around if people have any questions. But we also do get the opportunity to take more structured guided tours with visitors. And so usually that happens in the summertime when the weather's nice and we get to walk around the property. Because in addition to the lighthouse, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this more later, but because of where we are on Fort Story and Virginia Beach, there's a number of other historic sites that we get to walk around nearby that are just a few minutes away. And so typically our guided tours get to walk through all of that history. We usually say it's about 400 years of history in just an hour, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think at this point I want to play a brief video that's about a minute, since we're talking about you as historic interpreters. Play a little video that's part of a tour you gave. I think the whole video is available on the Preservation Virginia YouTube channel. People want to see the longer video, but we're going to play a little clip of you actually giving a tour of the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse inside the tower. So let me go ahead and play that. Here we go.
Now let's go see the view from the top of the lighthouse. Come on.
Inside the lighthouse, you will climb the same cast iron spiral stairs installed in 1867. There are 102 steps to reach the top, and this can take a bit. As you climb, you will notice windows on the east and west sides of the lighthouse.
3/4 of the way up inside the tower is a 9-foot ship's ladder. One more little spiral till we're almost at the top.
Coming up these last few steps, we did it! Because the Fresnel lens is no longer up here, you will have a 360-degree view. The big body of water to the northeast is where the Chesapeake Bay meets the Atlantic Ocean.
Please see the additional resources linked after this video or ask any staff member for more information. And thank you so much for climbing the Cape Henry Lighthouse with me.
Okay, I just took a look at the chat. Looks like we got a lot of people taking part on YouTube, which is great. A lot of people, a lot of parts of the country represented, and also Nova Scotia, Canada, Maryland, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Florida, etc. So that's great to see. Before we get back to some questions, I actually have one more little video I want to play, but let me set the stage. Last year, we did our 3rd annual Lighthouse Dance-Off, U.S. Lighthouse Society Dance-Off, asking people to dance at lighthouses. And we actually gave people this year a choice of a bunch of different pieces of music. Old Cape Henry Lighthouse tied for first place. And I'm going to play a clip. It's not quite the entire thing. It's a little less than a minute, but it's a good part of it. And Colby, you're the star of it. So after I show it, maybe you'd like to comment on it. So here it is.
Now let's go see the view
Whoops.
from the top of the lighthouse. Come on.
Sorry. Here we go.
Hey y'all, it's Lynn and the Lightkeepers. Welcome back to Lighthouse Jazzercise. Let's dance. Start right, left, heel tap. Just an easy warm up. Get that blood flowing. We're doing grapevine, right, left, level up. Get those arms and across. Woo. Looking great, guys. We're doing corner pulls from right. Hold that core. We're doing 4 more. Ooh. Give us your best lighthouse. Some people call this one the sprinkler, but here at Cape Henry we call it the lighthouse. Ooh. Little freestyle.
I love that.
Okay, that was incredible. I loved that. I loved the first video, but I had no idea what to expect for the second, though. Colby does it all. That was amazing.
She does, doesn't she?
Oh, thanks. It was such a fun time. Henry, who's the guy in the red in the dance video, he actually came to me and forwarded the email from the Lighthouse Society about the dance off. I didn't even know it was a thing. And he was like, hey, I think we should really do this. I think this would be a fun way to use our social media and support another Lighthouse Society. And so I kind of did a little bit of looking to see what last year had looked like. And I saw some ballet pictures, and I also take ballet. So I was like, well, we could do that. But then I was like, I wonder if we could do something crazy and let's try a jazzercise routine. So we kind of thought, what if an 80s jazzercise group happened to be at the Lighthouse at 10 a.m. on a Saturday? What kind of fun would they get up to? So that was our contribution.
80s, okay. I was thinking maybe 70s, but I guess it's more like 80s. You know, I think
Something like that.
Jane Fonda videos in the 70s. I'm old enough to remember those. Do you actually lead an exercise group or something like that?
No, I don't. I took part in college, but not anymore.
As
looks like you
someone
know-
who does, you should.
Yeah. And what a great location for it. I think you should have regular, an exercise group there. It's so cool the way you did it on the base of the old lighthouse with the view of the new lighthouse there. So it's perfect. You included 2 lighthouses in your video.
Yeah, we're always trying to develop new programs. So if there's interest, we very well might.
Right. Well, thank you again for entering, and congratulations on being one of the winners. So back to some historic questions, Billy, maybe you want to help out with this. It's been said that the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse is not the oldest lighthouse in the country, but it is the first, which kind of doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, sure. So when our Congress, the Ninth Act of the First Congress, is actually referred to as the Lighthouse Act. And that's when the United States decided to start building lighthouses, but also take over all the existing lighthouses that had already been built by the different colonies. And there were about 12 of those at that time. And of that original 12, only 3 of those are still standing. So we're the 4th oldest standing in the country. But in that Lighthouse Act, that's when our Congress authorized that Cape Henry was to be built. So we're the first lighthouse that was totally built with federal money.
Okay. Sorry, I was distracted a little bit. I just glanced at the chat again. We have friends in the chat. Great to see Josh Liller from Florida. He's another lighthouse historian in Florida who just said great enthusiasm, Colby. So I wanted to pass that along. Well, let me just ask you the reason for the lighthouse in the first place. The first Cape Henry Lighthouse, which still stands, of course, the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse, was built in 1792. Why was that an important place at that time to build a lighthouse?
Well, it's right at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay was an important shipping point for the whole United States, even going back into the early part of the country back in the 1700s. They tried to put a lighthouse there starting around 1720, but they never could come up with financing. And even though the Chesapeake Bay is really wide, where it's at the mouth, it's about 15 miles across, but it's pretty shallow at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. So they needed a lighthouse there pretty bad. They were having a lot of shipwrecks and stuff like that. And it's pretty strategic as well.
Yeah. Another thing that's near the lighthouse that's an interesting historic marker is something designating that it's the spot that was the first landing. It's considered first landing. And actually, let me put up a picture. I do have a picture queued up if I can just find it. Just give me a few seconds here. Here it is. Whoops. Okay. First time using the system here, so I hope people understand. But there's a picture I just put on the screen that is the first landing marker. So what does that mean? What is the first landing?
The first landing is the first landing of the Jamestown colonists. Cape Henry is where they first stepped ashore at in 1607. They're the ones that named it Cape Henry when they landed there. They were ordered not to settle on the coast, so they established Jamestown about 50 miles inland up the James River. So that's why it's called the first landing site, and starts with our 400 years of history that we do at Cape Henry for our tours.
Cool. I think I read those the Daughters of the Revolution that put that marker there, I think.
So I think it's the Daughter American Colonists.
Oh, okay. I was close. I got the daughters part right anyway. All right. Let's talk about tours a little bit. The lighthouse is open for tours. The old lighthouse is open for tours, but it's on Fort Story, an active military base. So how do the tours work? I know this because I did it a couple of years ago. But for our viewers and listeners, how do the tours work?
Well, we have, if you're military or DOD, you can get on the base with your IDs that you have. But if you're not military, if you're civilian, you have to enter the base at 89th and Atlantic, where Gate 8 is, and they will direct you. Tell them you want to visit the lighthouse, and they'll direct you to our parking lot just inside the gate. You'll go through a little security brief. You'll give up your driver's license. You have to have either a real ID or a passport to get on the base. And then you'll board a shuttle, and that shuttle will take you about a mile from there down to the lighthouse, and you'll get off the shuttle, and the shuttle driver will explain everything that you need to know about visiting the base so you don't get in any trouble or anything. And then the shuttle will take you back to your vehicle when you're ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, it's a well-oiled machine. I was impressed. It ran really smoothly, and everybody does a great job with the tours. When I visited there a couple of years ago, it was featured on the podcast at that time, and I think our friend Rachel Balderson, who's a site manager, is that her title? Yeah, interviewed her at that time, and actually we did it in an old railroad station building that's there near the lighthouses. So that was kind of cool. I think I've seen an old postcard where you see that actual railroad station in use as well. So it's one of the historic buildings there. Is the new lighthouse ever open for tours?
It is one day a year. It will be August 7th will be that day. The Coast Guard for the past few years has opened up the new lighthouse, and that is National Lighthouse Day. And that's when our first Congress passed that Lighthouse Act. So it's a big event for us. We have a lot of other museums come and set up booths and tables and everything. I think last year we had over 900 people went into the new lighthouse.
And how many hours?
And from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
That's impressive. That's a lot of people to get through there. A tall lighthouse like that many in a few hours. Yeah.
It went pretty smoothly, actually. Yes.
Yeah. If you open it, they will come. That's the general rule with lighthouses. So, and I'm sure a lot of local people know it's only open once a year, so they take.
They do now.
Right. Well, that's great. So something really important I want to talk about is the fact that we are near the end of Black History Month of February, and there's some really interesting, important African American history associated with the lighthouse and other places around there, of course. First of all, could you tell me about a man by the name of Willis Augustus Hodges, please?
Yeah, of course. So Willis Augustus Hodges gets to be one of our stories that we share because he was the first Black lightkeeper, and he was our only Black principal lightkeeper at Cape Henry. And so we share his story this month, but all year round. And what's kind of special about him is he did grow up in Virginia. And so he was a local back before Virginia Beach was Virginia Beach. It was called Princess Anne County. So that kind of might be used interchangeably here, but he grew up in Princess Anne County, and so he's a local. He split his time between Virginia and New York, and one of our other colleagues really likes to say, working as a lightkeeper at Cape Henry was like the least exciting thing that this man did. He was such an influential person, both in Virginia and New York, that being a lightkeeper at Cape Henry for 2 months during the summer of 1870 was important, and that's how we know him, but he really did so much more. And one of the stories that I kind of like to share about Hodges, and what's really cool is the story comes from his autobiography. So when he was about 35 years old, he wrote his autobiography, and he lived for another 40 years. So it really only chronicles the first half of his life, but it's available and you can read it for free online, which is really cool. But one of the stories that he shares is it's the 1840s. He's living in New York. He's a free Black man living in New York in the 1840s. And the New York Constitutional Convention is trying to decide if they want to do an equal suffrage amendment. And so this is on the state level, not on the federal level. And so he wants to send a letter to to a newspaper called the New York Sun. And he wants to say, all of you opposers to this amendment, here's why you're wrong and here's why we should support it. And so he writes to the editor and he says, your newspaper claims that it shines for all. So here's my letter, please publish. And the editors write, nope, the sun shines for all white men, not for you. So you have to get your own paper if you want to tell your side of the story. So Hodges works with a friend and actually develops his own paper. And it's called the Ram's Horn. And it was a weekly paper that circulated from 1847 for a number of years. At one point, it even had over 2,000 subscribers from all over the country. And this was a paper that had a lot about abolition and equal rights, equal suffrage, education. And we even know that John Brown had a subscription to this, well-known abolitionist John Brown had a subscription to this newspaper. And so I think it's really kind of shows, A, what's going on in the 1840s in the United States, in New York especially, but also somebody says you can't, you can. And that kind of perseverance is something that we see continually from Hodges. Later, he comes back to Virginia and he becomes a delegate for the Constitutional Convention after the Civil War. And he holds a number of different public offices in addition to being keeper of the lighthouse. And so, this is one small thing that he did in this greater career of public service.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And, it makes me think about the fact that in general, I like to think of lighthouses as kind of a window onto history, into history. And, people get interested in lighthouses and it just leads you into so many different areas. So like you said, the fact that he was a lighthouse keeper may have been a kind of a very small part of his life in a way, but still it's a way to get people's attention and get them interested in everything he did. And like you said, that period for African Americans and everything. So I understand there's also some interesting African American history associated with the Cape Henry Life-Saving Station. Maybe one of you could tell us about that.
Yeah, this is kind of
sorry, I was just going to say, I'm just going to put up a picture of it while we talk about that.
Yeah, this is sort of a new area of research that we're pursuing this year. We were inspired. Every January, we close down for a couple days to do some staff training. And so this year, we went to our neighbors at the Virginia Beach Surf and Rescue Museum. And they're actually in an old life-saving station building down on the ocean front. And so they got to share this story with us. And then we did a little bit more of our own research. But the life-saving service and the lighthouse service also kind of coexisted at the same time and worked together sort of in the late 19th century. And so the life-saving service was created in 1881 nationwide. It was created by Congress. And then 3 years later in 1874, Congress decided, hey, I think we need some life-saving stations in Virginia, especially kind of from Cape Henry going south, like towards the Outer Banks. And so there were 3 stations initially built in what was then Princess Anne County, is now Virginia Beach. And so Cape Henry was the second station that was built. But if you look at the reports and the districting, it's number 1 station. So it's Cape Henry Station number 1 in the 6th district. And if anybody out there has done life-saving service research, it always boggles my mind that the lighthouse service and the life-saving service didn't align their districts. So the Cape Henry Lighthouse is in the 5th district, but the station is in the 6th district. And I don't know, that's just been a recent kind of headache for us that we're sorting through. So maybe there's some historians out there that are feeling the similar confusion. But so this station opened for rescue efforts in 1874. They were crewed, like many stations, by a 68 surfman crew. Surfman was their title. But after the first season, all of the crewmen were sacked for insubordination. They were all fired. And so the station keeper was a man named J.D. Edwards, and Billy can talk a little bit more about him. He decided to hire a brand new crew, and he filled 5 of the 6 positions with African Americans, and this is in 1875. And we have the names of those 6 crewmen, surfmen, and Billy's doing a little bit more research on their genealogy and where they're from. And one of those men in particular, Littleton Owens, went on to become a assistant lightkeeper at Cape Henry later. And so while this is all new research for us, kind of this is where we're at right now, and we're realizing that this is not a trend solely restricted to Cape Henry of having Black surfmen working these stations. Many of them, like Littleton Owens, had prior careers with the United States Colored Troops. They were veterans of the Civil War, or they had held political offices during Reconstruction. So Billy, if you want to chime in with some of the research you have done on the genealogy.
Yeah, Colby mentioned J. Edwards there. I've done a lot of research on him, and hopefully there'll be a paper I wrote about him coming out on Preservation Virginia site real soon. But he's a pretty interesting character. He was the last lightkeeper of the old lighthouse, then the first lightkeeper in the new lighthouse, and also he was the keeper there at the surf station. And that's what they called him. It confused us a little bit when we first saw that they actually called the keeper at a surf station was the keeper, and they call them keepers at the lighthouse too. But he was a famous photographer pre-Civil War. He was from New England, but he ended up going down to Louisiana. There's a book and about all his photographs he took of pre-antebellum New Orleans. But he was contracted by the Confederate government to take some pictures of Confederate positions in Pensacola, Florida. And there's pictures of the positions he took there. But he also took some pictures of Union positions as well. And so the Secretary of the Confederate Navy's home was in Pensacola. When the Confederates abandoned Pensacola, he, of course, left his house, and the Union went in there and found photographs that J. Edwards had taken of Union positions. So he was suspected of being a Confederate spy. He left Louisiana, came up to Richmond, stayed there for a while, finally came to Princess Anne County, farmed for a little bit, and then got his jobs with the life-saving station and the lighthouse. And he later, after he left the lighthouse, and we believe that was for political reasons, because we saw a newspaper article just recently where William Mahone was an ex-Confederate general. He was part of the Readjuster Party, wanted to have J. Edwards removed because he wasn't of the same belief as William Mahone was. So J. Edwards left, and he had a photography studio, pretty big studio down in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's where he passed away at. But he's a pretty interesting character. And that wasn't even his original name. He changed his name when he was about 10 years old, when his father died, and he went and lived with his uncle, and he took his uncle's surname.
Yeah. I was just going to mention back to the African-American history around there. The Chesapeake Bay region is pretty unique in American lighthouses, having a lot of African-American keepers. There's really almost none of that anywhere else in the country. So it's a really a fascinating history. And I know the Chesapeake chapter of the U.S. Lighthouse Society has done some research on that as well. So it's and also I know there's a historian of Virginia I've had on the podcast as well, Ben. Can't quite think of his name. I was wondering if you know him, but I can't think of his last name. But anyway, he's a teacher who's done a lot of research too. So it's such an interesting subject. So before I move on to other questions, do you have anything else to add about keepers at the lighthouse? Anything that springs to mind? Interesting personalities or stories or anything?
Well, one thing that's always right from the get-go when I first started working at the lighthouse is learning about the lightkeepers and how they advertised for the first lightkeepers at the lighthouse. And they put it out that they're going to build the lighthouse there at Cape Henry. And a lot of people applied for that position. And George Washington was the person that appointed those early keepers. And they were all veterans of the American Revolution. But it was amazing how many people wanted to be the lightkeeper at Cape Henry. It's a very isolated place, even up until 1902. But the first lightkeeper that Washington appointed was William Lewis. He was a former member of the Virginia State Navy, had been appointed to that position by Thomas Jefferson. And he got that job. He was on his way to the lighthouse. and he died like a day before he was to get there. So he's just the first appointed lightkeeper. And the person that did get the job was actually like an on-site superintendent during construction. He was a local person, from a very prominent family. And he did it about 4 months. But when that man, William Lewis, died, you would not believe how people were jockeying for that position as soon as they found out he had passed away. So it's always amazed me how many people wanted that job there.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking, as lighthouses go, it'd be a nice place to be, although I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot around there at that time, probably not much of anything, but still, at least it was on the mainland. I mean, you weren't stuck out on an island far offshore or something, so not too bad a place to be. So I'm not surprised there'd be a lot of competition for it. Sorry, go ahead,
mentioned that. When Billy mentioned that, we kind of looked back into our old our records. There's a book that Chris Pyszynski put together, who's a historian that kind of compiles all of the primary sources about building the lighthouse. So it includes some of these letters of application. And so I think it was last winter, I put together a video for our TikTok and Instagram that was 5 tips on how to write a good cover letter based on the men who wrote letters of interest for the lightkeeping position. And that was a really fun video to see what people were saying their qualifications were, what names they were dropping. A lot of them were founding fathers like James Madison and Thomas Jefferson. And so all of those big names. And so that video was fun for me to put together. And also the reception was pretty fun for people who maybe needed their own tips or just thought it was really funny to hear what people are writing in the 1790s to get a job.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Colby, because I meant to mention how we saw a couple of videos you were involved in, but you do the social media pretty much for the lighthouse, right? And do a lot of cool little videos I've seen on Instagram. So it looks like you have a lot of fun.
To do a combination of fun ones and educational ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can be both at the same time. That's the whole idea, I think. So before I ask any more questions, I'm going to show you a closer view of the hat I'm wearing right now. Whoops, wrong. Again, I'm still learning the controls here. Let me see. Oh, there's Sarah.
Hey.
Well, let me get back to the view I had in the first place, and I'll just lean forward here so you can see the can you read what it says on the hat? You don't say it out loud, but just tell me you can read it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that's the second clue for our contest at the end. So I hope people are paying attention. So a little bit more about the lighthouse itself. Okay.
There goes Jeremy. I'm not sure where he went. I thought that was
Hi, everyone.
There he is.
I'm still here.
That Jeremy did do an interview with Ben Trax, and if anybody's interested in that, I posted a link to it in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Rich. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't have a chance to get to that. I'm glad you did that. I think you toggled me off by accident there, but anyway, so it's in the chat that Ben Trask, who did a lot of research, has written a lot about Virginia lighthouses and research on the African American keepers. I believe he was supposed to be, I don't know if the latest is on it, but he was working on a book specifically on that, I believe. But there is a link to that interview in the chat at this point. Ben, B-E-N-N, two N's, B-E-N-N, Trask. So I was just saying about the lighthouse. The 1792 lighthouse still stands, obviously, right near the new, quote, new lighthouse, 1881 tower. They originally built the new lighthouse largely because the old one was thought to be in poor condition. I believe it had at least one crack that they were worried about. But here it is, like almost 150 years later, and it's still standing strong and tall. And so any ideas about why it survived so long? I guess it's been taken really good care of since then.
Yeah, it's a pretty harsh environment there at Cape Henry. We're right there at the mouth of the bay. We get these nor'easters that come in the wintertime. People refer to them as winter's hurricane. But the builder of the Cape Henry Lighthouse also built 2 more lighthouses 4 to 6 years later after Cape Henry. Montauk Point on the very tip northern tip of Long Island, and Eaton's Neck on Long Island Sound, which is actually on a Coast Guard base. And both of those lighthouses are also still standing. So when George Washington and Alexander Hamilton chose the builder for the lighthouse, they chose the right builder. And the cracks that started appearing, they were largely due to the installation of the cast iron staircase that was put in there in 1867. Originally had wooden stairs, and they put that cast iron in there due to the wooden stairs becoming soaked with the different fuels throughout the years. And all that extra weight, about 5 years later, the cracks started appearing, and at the time they thought they were structural. Turns out they're not. But they also wanted a stronger lens at the lighthouse there. It had a second order Fresnel lens in it, and they needed the first order on the coast. So the new Cape Henry Lighthouse has its original first order lens in it that was installed in it in 1881. But it's built up two different types of stones, and the builder recognized that some things when he's building it, the sand was softer there, so he dug the foundation down deeper than the specifications called for. He built the foundation wider. The other stone, that the reddish stone that the tower is made out of, is not as soft a sandstone as the base is. So that was a wise move on his part, all the changes that he made. That's a lot of the reasons why it's still standing.
Yeah. I've been in those other two lighthouses you mentioned. Eaton's Neck is on a Coast Guard station. It's kind of hard to get into, but I brought a U.S. Lighthouse Society group there a couple of years ago, and also to Montauk. So those are three great lighthouses you're talking about. They're all extremely well built. And I know there's been a couple of, before I move on, I was just going to mention Ralph just asked in our private chat here, is that the crack that was seen in the video, the crack we were talking about? The video where you're giving the tour, so you can actually see the crack, right, Colby?
Oh yeah, there's they're all still there. There's a number that are on the exterior that are a little harder to see, but as well as on the interior. None of them are worrisome though. They're not concerning anymore. Right. But cool to see for sure.
Yeah. So there's been a couple of rounds of restoration in recent years. I think there was a lot of work in 2018, but also some work last year. And I'm going to put up a picture here of this is during the work that was completed last year, if I got that right, Colby and Billy?
Yep. Yeah, this was last spring. I want to say this picture was maybe April or May-ish. Maybe. Yeah. And so the purpose of this restoration, I don't know if you're able to zoom, Jeremy, but it is to focus on the keystone and the doors at the top of the stone at the top of the doorway.
Is this better? This is after, after, but I'm not able to zoom in, sorry.
Okay, so yeah, this is after restoration. So we had a team of, I don't know if they're local to Richmond area, but they're based out of Virginia, of stonemasons come out, and they were great. They're a group called Dominion Building, and they were awesome because they were really excited to talk to the staff and our visitors about what they were doing. But what's really neat about this project is this, the stone that was used for this project is original stone. So as Billy kind of mentioned, in the 1720s, there was a push to build a lighthouse that would be a colonial lighthouse at that point, and didn't receive funding. And so they tried again in the 1770s. And at that point, the colony of Virginia and the colony of Maryland had both said, we'll contribute some money to build a lighthouse. And so stone was quarried in the 1770s from kind of north near the Rappahannock. It's a quiet sandstone is the name of the type of sandstone, is that kind of grayish sandstone. And so they brought a bunch of that down to Cape Henry, to the site of where the lighthouse would be built, but construction was interrupted because of the Revolutionary War. So fast forward to 2025, some of that stone remains on site. And so our historic preservation dude, his name is Eric. I can't remember his actual title, but he works at Preservation Virginia. So he does historic preservation for all 6 sites. But he was so excited because you're able to use original material. And so it will align well, it'll work well with all the material that's there. And so they re-quarried out the stone from on site. And then the stonemasons, Dominion, they used historic tools. They didn't use any power tools. They used a historic recipe for the lime mortar that they needed. And so that was really, really cool to watch. And so we've got another project coming up this summer, which will do something similar with the stone around the windows, which you can't see on the lighthouse around the kind of east-west sides from this vantage point. But they're going to replace the stone around the windows. There's going to be a project to add in a circa 1840s ventilator to the lantern room, which is very exciting. So that will restore the lighthouse to more historic accuracy, which is always exciting. And then they will also repair some of the cracks and fill in some of the mortar using a stitching technique that I'm excited to learn more about.
Stitching.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm thinking you actually kind of like the fact that there's no light up in the lantern room. It gives you a certain freedom to move around up there and get more people up there at a time, right? But has there been any thought to putting some sort of, I know it can't be too bright a light, it's not an aid to navigation, but some sort of decorative type light up there? Is that been
I
thought
don't know
about?
if that's ever been discussed. I have put a lantern up there myself to get some pictures of the lighthouse, what it might have looked like with a light in it. And those came out pretty good. The time when I did it on the 225th anniversary of the lighthouse. So I want to light it up one more time.
Cool. Ralph just asked, what is the historical marker plaque on the side of the lighthouse? I'm not sure.
There's a couple of them on the outside the lighthouse. One talks about the Lighthouse Act and Congress passing that. And then there's one talking about the first landing with the Jamestown colonists as well.
Okay. So there was a lot of work done in 2018, right? Is that when the whole this brick base or whatever you refer to it as, that's when that was put in? Is that right?
Yeah, that was all just broken rock and fill before that, with a wooden fence that was just about falling down, and kudzu vines growing everywhere. So they came in and put that plaza area in and shored up the foundation. That was the main purpose, to shore up the foundation of the lighthouse.
As I remember, there's a good number of stairs to get to that plaza and then up the stairs in the lighthouse. Do you know how many steps total, counting the walk up to?
I was going to tell Jeremy, of course we know. In total, we say that there's 194 steps, and that would be if you left our gift shop and you walked all the way to the tippy top. But what you're referring to, Jeremy, is to get to the plaza level, which is what you're seeing. There are 79 stairs, and there's the 13 granite stairs you're looking at, and then 102 inside the lighthouse, including a 9-foot ship's ladder. So of course we know how many stairs there are.
I was going to say, I remember 102 from that video that we watched earlier. So I was paying attention.
Yeah. You haven't been there yet, Sarah, right?
I have not.
Well, you got to bring Coda. Yeah. You got to bring Coda there. I haven't mentioned that Sarah's has an Instagram with her dog Coda the keeper, right? So people want to visit that on Instagram. It's a Coda KODA Coda the keeper is her Instagram.
At Coda the keeper. He has not made it down the coast that far, but now we have a great excuse to go down there.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So you really need to go there. And I'll just throw in too, while I'm talking about it, that in that general area, you've got the Mariners Museum in Newport News, which is a great maritime museum. And that's where the physical archives of the U.S. Lighthouse Society resides. So anybody who's doing lighthouse research, that's a great place to go. And it's just a wonderful museum with a first order lens, I believe, from Cape Charles Lighthouse on display. Spectacular lens. So, yeah. So it's another thing people need to visit in that area. So let me just ask you, I saw a news story that a piece of military history was put on display near the lighthouse, I think maybe a couple of years ago. Could you say a little bit about that?
Yeah. There's the USS Iowa's, one of their gun barrels is out in front of the gift shop now. That gun barrel I'd set over at a naval annex over in city of Portsmouth or Chesapeake, and it had been sitting there for years. It was all rusty and everything, and the local contractor and a group of people decided they wanted to display that gun barrel, and they were going to put it at Norfolk Naval Station, but they figured more people would see it at Cape Henry. So the local contractor volunteered his services and labor and supplies, and sandblasted it down, spray painted it back to its original color, and they brought it over to the Cape Henry Lighthouse about 3 o'clock in the morning, so it's not to disrupt too much traffic coming through the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, and everything. And it sits out in front. And Cape Henry, the Fort Story where we're at, that was a coastal defense base, and that's the size guns it had here at one time, the 16-inch guns like it's on the USS Iowa and the Iowa class battleships there.
Sorry, I had myself muted. I had to unmute myself. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here. I want to open it up to the chat in a couple of minutes, any questions people might have. But before that, I have two questions for both of you. And obviously, Sarah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. But I have two questions for both of you, Colby and Billy, and these are for bonus points, okay? First of the bonus point questions is, with everything this is a question that I'm always asking myself every day, basically, but with everything that's going on in the world today, and there is a lot, why are lighthouses still important? And I'm not talking about for navigation, that gets talked about a lot, but why else are lighthouses still important?
Go ahead, Colby. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, that is the big question. I think they just show a level of humanity that is really special, because a lighthouse is designed to be on the lookout. It's for something other than yourself in some ways, right? Like it's for the ships that are on the water. It's for those in need. And so I think it really kind of gets us to think about the world outside of ourselves. And I think it also lends itself well to I think something that's the motto of your society is just kind of being out there for other people. And I think when we get to look at the historical lives of our lightkeepers, we also get kind of a window into past humanity. What is it like to be a lightkeeper at the Cape Henry Lighthouse when there's nothing around and you're totally in the desert and you've got no one out there? Or what's it like to be the first Black lightkeeper in Virginia in the 1840s? Like what are, what does that look like growing up in the 1840s to become later the first Black lightkeeper in the 1880s? What does that mean? I think that it also kind of shows us some of the humanity of just what life was like. What are the concerns of people in the past, and how is that similar to the concerns of people today?
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with everything you just said, Colby. Billy, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think they stand as symbols, symbols of our country as it grew and everything. Alexander Hamilton obviously thought it was very important to put a lighthouse here. And people nowadays, a lot of people don't even know what lighthouses were actually used for. They just think they were just something for people to see or whatever, but they don't realize how important they were to our nation and the history of them and everything like that. And I think people are really fascinated by lighthouses, and I think it's good that we do preserve them, that people will in the future will still be using lighthouses, even though as our electronics come along and get more and more, modern electronics, but the lighthouses are still that symbol and everything.
Yeah. I'll give you both A+ and a gold star for your answers. Those are great. Yeah, it's the combination. So much of this comes down to the people. You both talked about the humanity, the keepers and everything. Whether you're talking about lighthouses today or in the past, it comes down to the people. It's what bring these places to life, obviously. But it is also that symbolism of hope and guidance that lighthouses represent so much. So one final question for bonus points, and that is, what do you enjoy most about your work at the Old Cape Henry Lighthouse? And again, you can fight amongst yourselves for who's going to go first here.
I'll go first this time. To me, I've been there 10 years, and it's a great job for somebody like me. I'm local. I'm a history buff. I always have been a lighthouse geek. I've got lots of pictures of lighthouses when I was the captain of the hydrographic survey vessel. Most viewpoints most people don't get to see because I'm on the boat getting to see them versus driving up to them or some other way. But the staff is what has kept me there all these years. We have a good mixture of people like me, older, local. We also have people like Colby who are coming out of college and they're very enthusiastic, and I think everybody, when they come there, they're not quite sure what to expect working there. But once we get them there and get them trained and everything, everybody's really enthusiastic about it. It's just a great place to work, and also you can't beat the view.
Colby.
I would agree with Billy completely. Our staff is great, and we have a lot of really awesome staff, like Billy mentioned, that have been locals for a while. I got my car mechanic recommendation when I moved from a staff member because they've lived here forever. Of course, they're going to know who's reputable. But we also have a lot of kind of young staff like myself who are trying to kind of see, what is this history? I got a history degree. How am I going to use it? What is it going to look like? Whether or not they know anything about lighthouses. But I think one of the things that I really like to appreciate is every time I get to walk up those stairs to the top of the lighthouse, and it's not always the funnest thing you want to do at 4 o'clock at the end of the day, but I get to touch the same staircase that our 3 lady lightkeepers touched. I get to walk the same stairs that all of our black lightkeepers walked. Like, I get to really stand there if I want to and really think about how cool it is that I get to be in the same place, however many years in the future. And the fact that I get to be so excited to share that with visitors, whether they're lighthouse lovers and they've been to, hundreds of lighthouses or something ridiculous, or they're like, I've lived down the street for 20 years and I had no idea this place is here. I think it's really incredible to be able to share those stories. And when you get to be at an office with a view as beautiful as Billy says it is a joy to go to work. It truly is.
Wow. I think I got a good soundbite for promoting this. Actually, I've gotten a bunch of those from both of you. That's great. And I just want to, something Billy said about, working with young people. I have to say that, it's great meeting you and talking with you, Colby, because you're so enthusiastic about all this. And you are young, and so is Sarah. And, part of what we've been trying to do for years in the lighthouse world, as a lot of us are getting older. I guess we're all getting older, but some of us, I feel like we're especially getting older. And, the thing we're trying to do is get young people interested. So I would think that the two of you are an inspiration to hopefully some younger people checking this video or audio out here and realizing how fascinating all this is and how much fun it is to hang out at a lighthouse. I mean, how fun is that? It's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah.
I don't know I just want to say, it reminds me, in the wall behind me, you see there's a lighthouse flag there, and just above that, there's a picture. That is an aerial picture I took of Boston Light in Boston Harbor in 2001 from a helicopter. And that was the first lighthouse I ever gave tours at in the late 80s, just to date myself a little bit. And so that's why I have a picture of it up there, and it's very special to me. What a great time that was as a relatively young person to be able to give tours at that lighthouse. So, I understand how special this all is. I'm checking out the chat here. Penny says, thank you for the chat. We'll be up there in 2 weeks and can't wait to see the lighthouses. We will look out for Colby and Billy. So that was cool.
We will be there.
There's been a lot of nice comments in the chat. I don't think I'm seeing any questions, but please, if there's anybody watching and taking part in the chat, please feel free to ask questions. Let me see here. Any husband, wife, or father, son keeper stories from Old Cape Henry? If we could shift back maybe a little bit to the history before we close down. Any response to that? That's I think this is Ralph. Wondering about that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thanks,
there's a lot of those.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a part 2. I don't think I want to get too deeply into it now, but you mentioned some women keepers, right?
Yeah, so all 3 of our lady lightkeepers officially on the books. Of course, there might have been more that were unofficially working at the lighthouse. I think all of us ladies can appreciate that. But the 3 that were officially on the books were all wives, and their husbands were principal keepers at the same time. So they were both employed for the lighthouse simultaneously, which is pretty cool. And our plug for next month is Women's History Month. It is March. And so we will be doing a talk on, I believe it's March 14th. That should be a second Saturday in March at 11 a.m. It'll be a virtual program. So similar to this, but it'll be on Zoom. So for those of us who are familiar with Zoom, it'll be very familiar. And so we will be giving that talk at 11, all about Our Lady Lightkeepers. So it'll be a deep dive into that. So you can put on your calendar and start it. And shameless plug to also follow the Cape Henry Lighthouse. We are active on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and that's a really great way to hear more stories.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just say that, you know, Zoom is a great platform for such things, and we've done a lot of live Zoom events. So this is a new thing we're trying. You know, we hope we might reach out to some new people on YouTube. So, you know, again, trying new things, but Zoom is a great way to do live events as well. You see, it just was put up on the screen. Our friend Josh Liller from Florida asked if there's any chance of the new Cape Henry Lighthouse being open more than one day a year in the future.
We would like for it to be able to, but it's a big coordination between the military and the Coast Guard, the Navy. So it's a big deal getting all that coordinated. So the Coast Guard, there's no Coast Guard personnel stationed at New Cape Henry anymore. So they're only there a couple days a month when they come and do maintenance. So I don't know if it'll ever be open more than one day a year, to tell you the truth.
And our friend Ann Papa from the Chesapeake chapter of the U.S. Lighthouse Society wants to know how many female keepers there were.
Sure, there were 3, Julia Harding, Mary Creekmore, and Carrie Richardson. And they served, there was a 7-year period from the 1860s to 70s. All 3 of them were back to back, which is pretty cool. So just for that 7-year window, we had them all.
Neat. Okay, another question. I think I know the answer to this, but when was the last old lighthouse last painted? Well, that's actually a good question, but go ahead.
Yeah, we've seen some inspection reports where it was whitewashed back in, I guess, the 1850s, 60s, and 70s. And I think you can still see some of that whitewash on the southwest side of it where it doesn't get that northeast wind all the time. You can still see for some remains of that, but I'm sure after the new lighthouse is built, nothing was ever done to it after that.
Our friend Cheryl Roberts, who is a well-known lighthouse preservationist historian in North Carolina and also on the board, formerly on the board of USLHS, but she's asking again for the date and time of the presentation you just mentioned, Colby.
Yeah, I just double checked. It'll be March 14th at 11 a.m. and it is a ticketed event, so you will need to purchase tickets ahead of time. And the best way to do that is to go to preservationvirginia.org/upcoming-events, or follow us on any of our social media and we'll be promoting it there as well. I will drop that link in our chat and then that can get sent over to YouTube.
Excellent. I'm just scanning the chat. Thank you all so much for watching and for your comments and everything. There's a lot of nice comments. So here's so Colby, you just put the link in our private chat here. Let's see if I throw it up on the chat on YouTube. I think people can, well, if they click on that, I'm not sure exactly what it'll take them to. Is it a registration for the event? Is that what that will take them to?
Yeah, it'll take them to the event webpage, and then from there will be a specific link to purchase tickets.
Okay, great. I might just have to check that out. Oh, last question. Somebody says, I'll put this up on the screen. Last one, I promise. Where did the second order lens go?
Well, I'll answer that one because I've just been doing some research on that. I found the newspaper article just recently talking about the second order lens being removed. We have documents saying it was removed about 3 days after the new lighthouse was activated on December 15th, 1881. And so we know it's a second order lens. So just recently I went up on the U.S. Lighthouse Society's page and looked at all the list of lighthouses with the ones that had second order lenses in it and see which one was possibly installed after 1881. And I only found one that had a possibility, but I think I've since ruled that out as well just because of the information I found. So we don't actually know what happened to the second order lens.
Yeah, sadly, that's the case with a lot of them. But has there been any talk about taking the first order lens out of the new lighthouse or no? Not that you know.
Not that I've heard of. I know they're putting a brand new first order lens down at Cape Hatteras inside the new Cape Hatteras.
A replica.
one.
That's pretty
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, made
There
by
it is.
Dan Spinella of Artworks Florida, who does incredible work. And I understand the work there is going to take longer than they thought it was going to. I think it's going to be closed for another season, from what I've been hearing. I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah.
Well, the new Cape Henry Lighthouse is still an active light, so I don't think that's going
Right.
anywhere anytime soon.
Right. But yeah. It's more the offshore lights where a lot of the old historic Fresnel lenses have been removed, but some of the mainland ones have been left alone. I'm just scanning the chat again here, but I just want to say Sarah or Ralph or Rich. I'm going to bring Ralph and Rich back here. If anybody has any questions for our guests before we kind of wind things down here, please speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I see somebody in the chat mentioned about the second order lens was in the Staten Island Depot in 1906. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
Oh, really? Oh, that's Josh again. Josh Liller is a great lighthouse historian, so I'm sure he knows what he's talking about there. Old Cape Henry second order lens was in the Staten Island Depot in 1906. That's interesting, which is now the National Lighthouse Museum at the old depot in Staten Island.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right, then. I think it's almost time to wind down here. Thank you all so much. You don't go anywhere, but I just want to thank you so much, Colby and Billy, and also Sarah and Rich and Ralph. And just want to mention we kind of lost Jeff early on, right, Rich? He had an internet problem, so he had to.
Yeah, the internet's all went down in that area. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Technical problems.
Stuff happens. Technology is great when it works. So again, this video will be posted on our YouTube channel, probably within a few hours, I believe. I will be posting the audio version as our regular weekly podcast on Sunday. So before we sign off, here's the contest. Before I switch to the hat I'm now wearing, which I think is pretty easy to read. Sorry, I'm just queuing up a graphic here. Before I switched hats, I wore two previous hats, okay, during the event. And I pointed them out at the time. I gave you a good chance to see what they said. The first person who posts in the chat what one of my hats said earlier wins a U.S. Lighthouse Society baseball cap. And I spelled I should say USLHS there, so that's spelled wrong. But it's close. But anyway, the first person who says what one of my previous hats said on it wins a USLHS baseball cap. So now's your chance. Let me get back to the chat here.
Whoa, can I enter?
Let's give people a minute here. Nobody's entering yet. You got one?
Lynn O, one ply.
I think there's a little bit of a delay. Are you looking at directly on YouTube, Ralph?
No.
You're not. Well, because
No,
I'm
the
not
chat
seeing.
right on the side there. Already got one.
I see. Yeah, right. I see a whole bunch just came on like at once. Yeah, so I just work here. Lynn was the first one. Am I correct, Ralph, on that?
Yes.
Yes. Lynn dash etc. You are the winner. So Lynn, if you let's see, how do we want to do this? I'm going to say if you can contact me, I think that's the easiest thing to do. Contact me directly. So I hope you're listening, Lynn. You can email me at Jeremy, Jeremy. I'll put it in the chat. Jeremy at USLHS.org. And we will arrange for that hat to go out to you. And a bunch of people said I just work here, and a lot of people got the I'm old, but I'm like cool old too. So people were paying attention. So that's great. Yeah. All right. So Lynn, could you confirm that you got that message? If you could, Lynn, just say got it or something in the chat, just so I know you got it. I hope. I'm not seeing anything. Well, let's see. Who was second? Penny. Lynn, I'm giving you one more chance. Whoop. Oh, that's Cheryl. Okay. No. Lynn got it. Excellent. Okay. I didn't want to take it away from you, but thank you for confirming that. All right. Yeah, there is a delay in the YouTube broadcast. So I think when people enter the chat, it takes probably like 30 seconds or something before it shows up in our chat that we're looking at here. All right. So I'm going to cue up the usual end of lighthearted music if I can find it. Here we go. There we go. All right. Anybody who listens to the podcast knows that music. So be sure to check out USLHS.org to read about tours, preservation grants, the passport program, all the other stuff the U.S. Lighthouse Society offers. Our next Lighthearted Live will be on Thursday, March 26th at 7 p.m. Guest will be Dave Waller, owner of Graves Light in Boston Harbor. Dave's been on the podcast a couple of times. He's done an incredible restoration there, and he's a lot of fun to talk to. He's a really interesting guy. So that, again, March 26th at 7 p.m. So we'll be promoting that. Thank you to everyone who's been part of this, our first Lighthearted Live episode. Maybe a little ragged around the edges, but there's a bit of a learning curve with this new system we're using, and I think it's great. And I think maybe we'll get better with each one. Get better as far as me running it, but we couldn't have better guests. So you guys are just great, and it's so much fun talking with you. With that, as always, and well, first of all, just thank you again, Colby and Billy and everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. So you're very welcome. As always, to all our regular listeners and viewers and our new ones, thanks so much for listening, and
keep a good light.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm a little slow on the uptake. I was trying to put that up on the screen. But anyway, thank you all for attending, and we'll see you on March 26th. Take care, everybody.